Okay, thank you very much. My name is Paul Ndiho. I'm originally from Uganda, and I'm a reporter based here in Washington. First of all, let me commend you all for a job well done and for taking great personal risk to bring these stories to light. I think you really deserve some kind of credit. I have two questions. Number one, I wanted to know what are some of the challenges that you deal with, like on a daily basis, trying to document these atrocities. And second question is about the trauma. Maybe real quick. In 2000, I happened to be in the neighborhood. I was in Punya, and I covered a massacre in Nyakunde village, in nearby town, one of the areas that you're talking about. And I witnessed maybe 300 people killed in one night, and I recorded some of that stuff. But up now, I'm still struggling with recovery. I hear those voices. What is it that I can do? Can you give me some tips, maybe to psychologically try to figure out what to do? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
First of all, I would love to talk to you about Nyakunde. Nyakunde is a massacre that haunts me too. In fact, in the end, over 3,000 people were killed.
But I can share with you some video. I have a lot of video.
So maybe the way to get over it is you and I can share our trauma over Nyakunde. You know, I think all of us who do this work get haunted by some of the stories and the things that we hear. I don't have any wise words of advice for you other than I find when I have a chance to bring the stories out and to tell the story, it's personally what helps me, but I also I think it's a responsibility that we have when we do this work. In terms of some of the challenges, my goodness, the motorcycle rides all of us have been on, and I think my bottom is still recovering.
I think to answer your first question, no, well, actually, let me answer your second question first. Good family, and good friends, and also talking, as Annika said, like this. Thankfully, I'm a photographer, so I can't ignore my message. It sits there in my computer, and it sits there in my camera, and sits there on my contact sheets. So I can't push it to the back of my mind. It's always there, so I think sharing it is always a very good thing. And challenges, I mean, we're working across a vast area. The challenges are the logistics. We had to, first of all, find the funds, thanks to the Pulitzer Center and Human Rights Watch for that. You know, these are areas that the New York Times can't go to. These are the areas that the Washington Post can't go to. These are areas that Time Magazine can't go to, simply because they're financially prohibitive. We spent $17,000 on flights alone in Congo just to get us to the areas where these things were happening. Once we've arrived there, we had to then find bikes and travel for another 5 to 8 days into the bush to get to the places where we're reporting from. And these two ladies blazed the trail before we came. So at least there was a group of people that were kind of expecting us. So they had it a lot more difficult than we did. But the main problem is logistics. And then once you get on the ground, there is actually, I didn't find any problem with these people wanting to share their stories with you. They really wanted people to know. They really wanted people to understand. And they really wanted you guys to listen. And we're just a conduit for that. So actually getting the story when we were there was a lot easier than getting there in itself, really.
A lot of the victims we talked to, we were the first people who wanted to sit down and listen to their story and who seemed interested, and in many ways it was therapeutic for them to be able to talk and know that somebody cares and somebody is there to bring their story out.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think that in the interest of time, maybe the 5 questioners who are at the mic now, why don't we just take these questions here as a group, and then we'll let the panelists respond. We are going to have a reception just outside and upstairs for the next hour and a half or so, and I hope you'll stay, and all of us will be here and happy to chat some more. But let's finish with these questions here, and then we'll get some responses.
Hi, I'm Erica Schleicher. Thank you for this. I really don't know anything about this, and this is the most I've ever learned about it. And I feel like I have a much better understanding of especially the victim's story. But the piece of the story that's still missing for me is what motivates the LRA and or Joseph Kony? What does he want? And is there anything or anyone that can satisfy him to get him and his leaders to stop the crimes they're committing?
So what motivates Joseph Kony? So next, we'll do the questions in order.
My name is Travis Roberts, and I run a student organization called One World Initiative out of American University. And I guess my question would be, maybe especially you, Ida, since you were a student when you went to Uganda first, is what can student groups do? And being here in DC, are there things that we can do in ways we can help? And what are the best avenues for action as far as that goes?
Okay.
Thank you.
What can student groups do? Okay.
Hi, my name is Wanitha Abi. I was wondering, you said basically the army, most of them are victims as well. They've been taken from their homes and forced to be conscripted. How do you administer justice knowing that some of the members of the army are victims as well? How do you administer justice?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorting out victims and perpetrators. Okay.
My name's Rory. My question's also justice related, and it's regarding, is the justice system in the Congo prepared to and institutionally strong enough to handle these cases? And should there be, do you think it would be appropriate that there be special institutions like the Gacaca in Rwanda to deal with justice on a more localized level?
Hello. My name is Adam Cass. I'm a sophomore at the Elliott School, and I'm wondering if the African Union has had a unified response or has issued a unified statement in response to the LRA, and if so, what has it been?
Good. Those are all very specific. I hope we can answer them quickly. Although the first one is kind of a tricky one, because what does Joseph Kony want? That's a hard question from the outside.
I think he's been offered everything that can be reasonably offered to him at this point. And we spoke with a woman named Betty Bigombe, who was at the forefront of trying to bring Kony out of the bush, trying to negotiate a way for him to end his rebellion peacefully. And she was a big believer, and she was largely responsible for bringing him to the table in Juba. And when we spoke to her, she said, it's not possible, he won't negotiate. I think I don't know, I mean, that's the big question. What does he want now? I think what he wants now is to survive.
And the question about students, Ida, what can students do?
Well, the legislation on the LRA that was passed this past May in the US, and then Obama's strategy on the LRA that was developed because of this legislation, came about really because students and because young people care about this issue, and they lobbied their congressmen to do something about that. And that's really due to amazing work that's been done by advocacy groups like Resolve and Invisible Children, who have traveled all across the United States, mobilizing students, college students, high school students, and getting them to lobby their congressmen. So I think now that we have this strategy, what we need to do is to continue to lobby the Obama administration and our representatives to make sure that this strategy is implemented in a way that's actually effective. And students can play a crucial role in that.
I think the two questions about the sorting out victims and perpetrators, and is the Congo justice system, I mean, it probably could be expanded to the other countries as well, but certainly is the Congo justice system capable of addressing these issues?
Let me start with that one because it's the easier one than the first one. Is the Congo justice system capable? No. I mean, the reality is that the Congolese justice system is on its knees. It's corrupt. It's for years and years of lack of investment. But there are some areas of hope. In fact, there's been a big push by Human Rights Watch and other advocacy groups, including Congolese advocacy groups, for the Congolese government to develop what's called a mixed chamber, a special tribunal, a mixed chamber inside the Congolese justice system with help from the international community, including judges or prosecutors, to try mass atrocities, to try crimes of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, so the worst crimes under international law. And we've really been pushing the Congolese government to put this kind of a mechanism in place. And in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, the Congolese government introduced a law, is now developing a law to do just that, where international judges would come in and help try some of these worst crimes. And these LRA crimes could be something tried by such a court. And I think that not just those crimes, but other crimes committed in Congo as well, which we haven't talked about today, but we could if people are interested. There's plenty of other crimes too. But I think that's a real area for optimism and hope that some mechanisms will be created that could try these kinds of perpetrators. You know, the question of victim turned perpetrator, it's a tricky one with the LRA because so many children were abducted and have sometimes risen up the ranks of the LRA to become senior commanders. And I think our position and that of other kind of justice groups is that certainly those who are lower ranks and are minors should not be held to account. But those who are senior level commanders, and even if they were abducted as children, there is a point at which an adult makes decisions for which they need to be held to account. I hope that people in this room would not say, if you were a child who were molested, therefore you are forgiven, and you shouldn't be held to account if you become an adult who molests, right? That is not the kind of process that we should see. So one of the three individuals, Dominic Ongwen, who is one of the individuals wanted by the International Criminal Court, was abducted as a child. But he is now an adult commander and has committed some of the worst atrocities that Ida and I have documented. The Mukombo massacre that she described was done on the orders of Dominic Ongwen, and he should be held to account for that. But I think once you're getting to the lower ranks, I think that question is, I myself and we at Human Rights Watch would say that accountability perhaps should be set aside for the more junior ranks.
To add something to that, Joe and I interviewed at length some commanders that came out of the bush quite recently in northern Uganda just last month, and one of whom was a captain, another a lieutenant. They were abducted when they were very young from school. They learnt the ways of the LRA. They embraced the ways of the LRA. They told us that they believed in the ways of the LRA, and they believed in the principles of Kony. And after the Garamba Park massacres in 2008 and the failure of the peace agreement, they started to see that maybe Kony's end goal was not their end goal. They wanted peace. They wanted to come home. And they saw that Kony didn't necessarily want to embrace that. And so they changed their minds and they came home. They escaped, they came home, and now they're actually actively trying to encourage other commanders and other soldiers to come out of the bush through appeals on radio stations, shortwave radio stations that can be transmitted into the bush. So there is a fine line between someone like Ongwen and someone like Captain Joseph that we met just last month, who is actively trying to encourage people to come back out of the bush. So it's a very difficult line.
And lastly, any signs of optimism in African Union response or show of unity by the on this issue?
I think there's long been unity among the African Union on the question of the LRA. I don't think that there's been, the LRA has been roundly condemned by the African Union for some time, and even Khartoum has fairly recently given assurances that it has no plans to renew ties with Kony. But I think it's important, if we're looking at the need for military intervention, it's not going to come from the African Union, I wouldn't think. The Ugandan army is already one of the key players in African Union missions. It's the majority of the force in Somalia. It's deployed against the LRA now. It's been fighting against the LRA for a quarter of a century without huge success. What's needed now is an intervention by a professional, modern military with decent transportation capabilities, with high-tech communications that can organize and lead a complicated and sustained effort to hunt down these small groups that exist. And to be honest, I've not seen that any African Union force would be capable of doing that, with the possible exception a South African-led commando operation with support of other countries. That we haven't gotten to the stage where that's actually being contemplated. I know recently there was a meeting in Bangui, the capital of Central African Republic, where the affected countries, Southern Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, and CAR, all agreed to form a joint brigade, so around 2,000 troops, with the Ugandans to specifically deal with the problem of the Lord's Resistance Army. These are encouraging signs of cooperation among countries that are not necessarily historically the best of friends. But I think, these countries operating on their own generally have dysfunctional forces, and together they're not going to be any less dysfunctional. I think that it's time to think outside of this concept that this should be an African-owned problem. I think it's a problem that we all should own.
Well, excuse me, as I said earlier, there'll be more reporting coming out in news media outlets from this project in the weeks ahead. But in the meantime, there's an extraordinary amount of reporting both on the PulitzerCenter.org site, more of Marcus's photographs, the field reports that he and Joe posted from the field, and also on the HRW.org, the Human Rights Watch site, all of the reports and the depth of reporting for years and years that Annika and Ida and their colleagues have done. I want to thank again our colleagues at George Washington University for making this venue possible, and I especially want to thank all of my colleagues at the Pulitzer Center for much hard work in bringing this issue to your attention and to the attention of the broad American public. And especially I want to thank Joe and Ida and Annika and Marcus for the work that they've done and for bringing this to us tonight. So thank you.